Okay, so I just want to talk about the subroadbed or substrate. Anything that establishes your track laying surface, combination thereof, or just straight plywood, whatever you prefer. Like every layer that you add, you're going to introduce instability risk, right? See that? Like I decided to go with cork because I know it does have fairly good sound deadening qualities, probably better than most, but they are all overrated. Like when I built Glover Road, it was on like I think 3/16 plywood. That's it. And then I used matte medium, and it kind of helped, dull down maybe sort of the rattle that you'll get. But um, yeah, so this is 1/4 inch cork. So because this module is unique, that all the track is, well, a lot of it's buried probably on this module A alone. From there, like down to here, well, there's all this water surface, but then there's the barge slip, which is already buried through plastic. But I'm not going to pack out, my ground layer to track height to bury all that area down there where it's going to be asphalt with more plywood. I mean, I'm going to have to use MDF anyway, but because I've committed to cork, now I have to sort of go with it, right? And if you don't get it glued down really thoroughly, then this is what you'll get, see? You can get that. And you don't want that when you're doing sheet cork, because you're doing large areas. It's the only sort of economical way to do it, even though cork is not exactly cheap. And then furthermore, it sits around a lot. Nobody buys it nowadays, so it dries out. So it can get crumbly, right? Like this, right? So, I mean, it does have fairly, like it sounds nice when you run a train on it, but then as soon as you add, depending on the adhesive, you can enhance the, the rattle sound again that you don't want, right? Because the glue soaks in and it hardens everything to become another layer of laminate. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. But I'll talk more about that later and explain to you why I use matte medium, a little more expensive matte medium, diluted heavily, because it's got a rubbery texture and it doesn't do the same thing that carpenter glue does, which I use to glue the cork down to the plywood. And like normally I'll varathane the plywood to seal it just to prevent warpage, but I'm not going to do it in the cork areas because I want the grain, the open grain for the glue to grab nice and tight. I don't want a layer of varathane and then another, plywood, varathane, then cork. Now you got 3 layers, right? The less laminate or layers that you have, minus the glue, I think the better off you are, and the more minimal risk factor of getting this, right? Big bubble on your parking lot, buried track layout somewhere along the line, and it's that can be difficult to fix, right? So what I've done here is I've laid all these heavy plates on here and weights and make sure I get lots of glue and get a good bond. Okay, and then I'll have to do the same down there. And then when I lay the track on, it'll be totally level to the barge slip. And then instead of using plastic as I did on the barge slip, right, to bury the track, I'm just going to use cheap MDF, like 1/8 MDF board. I mean, I have plastic, but I don't know, because then I got to change up the adhesive. It'll be easier to glue like the wood, down onto the cork, like just with carp glue, rather than plastic to cork now. Ugh, I don't like that. Then I got to use epoxy, right? And now there's another layer, you see? So that's the method to the madness, Some of you have your own ways of doing things, and I get that. But with model railroading, every situation kind of demands a different approach sometimes. This is the one I chose to go. Why? Because I initially was trying to deaden more sound, but I probably could have laid it straight down on plywood maybe, but, it is what it is, right? Anyway. It always feels good when you get the first length of track down, doesn't it? The imagination begins. Anyway, imagine this is one of the warehouse spans right here. I'm using this plank 6 inches high, 47 feet approximately high. HO feet is approximate height of the warehouse running down. So I'm just using this board to basically plan out the span. It's going to go quite a ways, but there'll be sort of 3 sections, and they'll run at different angles. And this one's going to be quite detailed here, and then a long span all the way down past that can down there. Okay, so I use this super thin to lay my track down. In this particular situation, I know there's lots of ways to glue track, lots of correct or reliable ways of doing it. It depends on your style and everything. But I like to do it this way. See, I can run a straight edge here and I can tweak it and get it nice and straight, and then just capillary this under the tie, and it just grabs the cork. Like, it actually gets quite hot. So it really bites that tie and pulls it into the cork nice. As long as it's fresh though, you got to keep this cap like these. Just want to give you a pointer, like try to get the small bottles. There's a smaller bottle in this because the stuff goes flat like a pop or a beverage after a while. But the first quarter of it or third, if you use it quick, it's really good, right? You don't need any accelerator. This part's really important to get this all straight because, you know, there isn't really much tolerance here, like in terms of space, and like in this scale, when you're dealing with a shelf layout like this, you want to consider every little detail or aspect that you want to model in later, right? Like I want space here between this warehouse because the loading bays come out quite a ways, and some of them were not even in service, and there's sort of a little service road back here. So I want to have that space here, even though I'll be able to pull this out. I haven't built this out yet, but it won't be that thick. It'll be on a bit of an angle, right? But I'll be able to play with this later once the track's down. Then I can tweak my warehouse flat, or facade in this case, or flat if you want to call it that. Then I can tweak it the way I want it, right? Okay. But this is really, really where I want the track right now, exactly in this position. Once that's established, then everything else will start to pop into place. Okay, so wiring the turnout and installing it. I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so I got this first piece of tangent track in. Here's the turnout that I built previously, right? Okay, so I tend to overwire my track, like with a lot of hookup wire. In this case, I use 24 gauge hookup wire, stranded, right? Pre-tinned. I pre-tin all of it, and I pre-tin the rail. See here, I like to solder on the bottom of the rail here when I can. If I figure it's going to be visual, especially track that's up in the foreground, I don't want to see a big lumpy solder mark there, right? And then in this case for the frog, I just soldered it on top of the PC board because you won't see it anyway. It's sort of like that. And then I ran these two on top of the PC board on both sides. So I keep the common facing me all the time on the layout as I walk around. Red for common and black for negative. You can see all the hookup wire leads on here, right? It seems unnecessary, right? I'll tell you why I do this. I like to isolate, like see here, they're insulated rail joiners, okay? There's the hole for the throw bar, which I also, when I do my hole for my throw bar, I tend to use, this is a 5/16 drill bit, okay? I drill down in like this, and then I rock it back and forth like that. Because the wire pivots like that, right? And 5/16 is tons of room for music wire, whether it's a tortoise or manual, whatever, right? And then I just clean it up with a knife so there's no loose cork in there that would fall or jam up anything. Okay, so, and then I do a bunch of dry runs. I get my wires, you know, so they drop nice in, and then this I'll run a straight edge off. Okay, make sure this turnout is running straight on the tangent side. And then these little insulators that slide in like that, you see. And then see how they drop in? Frogs nice and level. So I'll do these ones here too. Actually, they're already drilled, but I'll feed those in as well. Okay. And they get bent down. I don't know if you can see that from over there, but so if I isolate this side, like the diverging rail and the tangent on the turnout, if I isolate this frog, then I never have to worry because it's already wired, it's already hot, right? From both ends. And then the tangent that hooks up beyond this, I'll solder droppers on those as well. I like to treat each section of track separately because it's way easier to troubleshoot if you have a problem or a short, right? Because your turnouts are isolated. You know, like what's the point of turning your track into a bus? Like that's what the bus is for right here. This is, oh yeah, this is 12 gauge, by the way. This is a 12 gauge solid copper core bus, okay? Because you're running 18 volts with DCC, right? Don't you want you want low resistance, right? And then this is 24 gauge, okay? And I pigtail too. I don't use those clips. Like I know people use them, they're easy, right? But they're much higher resistance than if you clean this off, you know, with your stripper. If you got a good set of strippers, it's easy to do with a knife, right? You just crimp through your stripper through the right size and you just slice through and then peel it off. And then I run a pigtail around and I solder it. That way that's very low resistance. Those little clip things that pinch, the resistance rating is quite high on those compared to the good old traditional pigtail and solder. I know it's a bit more work, but I'm a real stickler for immaculate track work and electrical. Simple, but effective, because you'll never think about it. Like you'll never have a problem when you run your locomotives. It'll be the last thing on your mind, other than a tweaked point or a guardrail out of alignment or something like that. Like you really want to make sure that you take your time and you think things through methodically when you lay your track and your turnouts, because down the road, that's where the joy is in model railroading. Like when you got questionable track and shorts, I mean, I've seen people on YouTube how they get so discouraged they almost want to quit. They want to quit the hobby because they got a gremlin or a short somewhere, right? A bad wiring job somewhere. It's just a mistake. We all make them. I make them too, right? But I'm really careful. With Glover Road, it was not that complicated, but I made sure that the track integrity was 100%. And I enjoyed running that layout like you wouldn't believe. It just ran consistently. I never ever had to think when I turned the power on if I would ever have a stalled locomotive. Anyway, so do a couple dry runs on your turnout. Okay. Now that's down nice. See that? There's not even any glue on that, and it's down. See, the wires actually hold the turnout in place beautifully, right? Okay. And then I'll run a straight edge on this, and I'll show you what I do. I'll show you why I use thin CA. Fresh CA, like I mentioned before. So now all I need to do, I won't do that right now, but all I need to do is just let it capillary on the edge of the tie. It'll suck down under the tie. Okay, just like in this section where the plastic ties are, and even the PC boards, because they got a plastic liner I glued on the bottom, right? But stay away from here though, from the throw bar. Don't put any glue there. All right, maybe on one tie there if you want, where it joins here. All right, but stay away from your throw bar. Okay, look at that, it's beautiful. Got one tangent piece and a turnout. It's about time, eh? Okay.